Hi booktubers, I'm Debs. Welcome or welcome back to my channel, Raina Read Stuff. I'm here in the book shack. I'm late. Been one of those weeks. Life takes over. But I have continued with my reading. So, this is my wrap up for the first week of October. And this month I am participating in Occult Detective October, Victober, and it's also the first month of the last quarter of Historathon 2023. So that's pretty much been what my reading's been about this week. Let's start off with Occult Detective October, which is the brainchild of MJ at Reading This Life. I will put all of the details for all of the reading events down below. So, this week's prompt was to read a book published before 1960. Oh, let's go this side, shall we? I chose Carnacki the Ghost Finder by William Hope Hodgson. I couldn't get a hard copy of this, so an e-copy it was, and it was such fun. Absolutely loved it. Lots of short stories, and they're done in a style that I really like. So Carnacki is your ghost hunter, finder, etc. And he has a group of friends who he invites round to dinner, barely speaks to them over dinner, and then after dinner has finished, he takes a seat in a big old armchair and proceeds to tell them about his latest investigation. One thing I liked about these is not all of them are ghosts. Some of them are tricks. Some are ghosts or manifestations, but they are eminently readable, and I don't know whether it's very similar to Sherlock Holmes when he's, holding forth and explaining how he came to the conclusions. But loved it, absolutely loved it. Found some more in another book, which is it's a compendium of different stories. It had some of the ones from that book in it, but then it had 4 extras, and they were great too. Absolutely loved them. I was also reading The Devil Rides Out by Dennis Wheatley, but I haven't finished it. I'm going to carry it over till next week. So this week, I'm so behind. I so don't know what I'm doing. Let's go Edgar Allan Poe. I'm absolutely loving these. So this last week, I'll get my dates right in a minute. Last week, the prompts were to read The Black Cat and also Maelstrom. Where is it? I can't find it. In addition, I read The Telltale Heart because it was Banned Books Week last week, and apparently that was banned. Absolutely love Edgar Allan Poe. Really enjoying these. I didn't know very much about him, to be honest. So, as part of my Let's Discover Edgar Allan Poe, I also read this Peter Ackroyd, Poe, A Life Cut Short. He was 40 when he died. He comes over as a really sad character, actually. Um, he had a variety of jobs, most of which he failed at or left, or was asked to leave. He appeared to be quite delusional in some of his ideas. It was almost like real life got confused with the stories that he was writing. He wasn't particularly honest to anyone, friends, family. He had a propensity to drink very heavily. When he drank very heavily, he went off the rails for days on end. Um, and yet he wasn't classed as an alcoholic because he could go for long periods of time without drinking. Um, but when he did drink, he drank. Ended up in pitiable states all over the place. He begged money off people. He married his cousin, who it's thought he married her in a secret marriage when she was 13. He then married her officially. She was still only 14. Um, yeah, it was a sad book, and he was quite a tortured soul. And I suppose I don't know. Do you have to be to write that sort of thing? I don't. I don't write horror stories. Um, but yeah, interesting but sad. Um, let us move on to October. October, I decided that I was going to attempt to learn to like Charles Dickens. Now, I read Hard Times at school. That was a very long time ago. So it's more than 40 years since I've looked at it. I hated it. I read it again and I loved it. I thought it was great. I love the characters in it. Tell you what, Bounderby. I love Dickens's names, by the way. The names are really quite emotive and suggestive of their characters. Anyway, Bounderby reminded me very much, for those who may have seen it, um, the Four Yorkshiremen sketch from Monty Python, where they are competing with each other to say how poor and destitute they were when they were growing up. That's what Bounderby reminded me of. Um, I like the characterization and the way Gradgrind was sort of teased out of himself after many, many years. Um, there is a lot of description in them. You know, Dickens is quite wordy in that respect, but I can actually say that I really enjoyed this, and I might read another one. I've got them all sitting on a bookcase shelf because somebody gifted me the entire collection of Charles Dickens. It seems a waste not to read them, but I liked it. It was good. I'm trying to find where to put these things. Oh, the other thing I read was also on ebook, and I read Agnes Grey. I've never read any Anne Bronte. I whipped through that. I thought it was great. And I might also move on to The Tenant of Wildfell Hall. Who knows? Who knows? Because there are quite a few books to read, quite a few events going on. So I'll have to play it by ear. The other thing I am keeping up with is this is the read along for Victober, The Way We Live Now, Anthony Trollope. I am absolutely loving this. Haven't read it before, was a bit daunted by the doorstoppiness of it, but actually it's brilliant and I'm loving it. And so to the rest of the Victober books. I finally, after ages having this on my bookshelf, got round to reading The Importance of Being Earnest. I don't know why I've been putting it off for so long. It was hilarious. I loved it. It took me about maybe an hour, a bit longer. I do read quite quickly, but maybe an hour or so. And I loved it. And because of this, I found I mentioned that I'd finished the 50 book box set of Penguin Moderns during Shorty September. Well, the other thing I have is the 80 book box set of what are they called? Penguin Classics. And so I thought I would go through and hook out all the Victorian ones. I started by reading Goblin Market by Christina Rossetti. I like Christina Rossetti's poetry. I particularly like Goblin Market. It's very fanciful, and it's a bit of fun with it. It's got a bit of a sting to it. Quite a lot of Christina Rossetti's poetry, I find, has. There's often something maudlin about it more often than there is something joyful about it. But Goblin Market is good fun. There were some others in here as well, which I also enjoyed very much. And then I read this, Gerard Manley Hopkins. Now, these weren't published until after the Victorian era, but they were written during the Victorian era. They weren't published until after his death, when a friend gathered them together. This is poetry, and you can tell by the poetry that he is a very big nature lover, but he was also very religious, and he was a priest. Everything eventually, each of these poems eventually come back to God, and they're not very cheerful. So, what could have been lovely, lovely nature poetry is then made a bit miserable, and I don't understand why. Maybe if I read some more about Gerard Manley Hopkins, I would understand. Um, that's it for the Victober books and the October books and the occult detective books. So, for the last quarter of Historathon 2023, we are reading books, history books about anything during the period 1820 to the present day. That gives you a lot of scope. A lot of things happened in the 20th century. Quite a few things happened in the 19th. So I have started with this. Elsie and Mary go to war. Elsie and Mary were quite incredible women. Mary was only in her late teens, 17, 18, when the First World War broke out. Elsie was a lot older. She was in her, well, I say a lot older, she was in her early 30s. And they met through a motorcycle club because they were both very keen motorcyclists. And then they signed up to to go to the front, driving ambulances. Elsie was a nurse. Mary had no experience in nursing, and they ended up spending 4 years a couple of 100 yards behind the trenches in Belgium, and they ran shelters, and they nursed people directly from the trenches and then drove them to hospital in a nearby town. And their story is quite incredible. They they went on fundraising tours to finance themselves because no one was paying for them. They actually became quite famous They were given medals by the King of Belgium. He came actually to visit them in their little, I mean, their little mini hospital was like a bombed out cottage. In fact, they had three different bases, and most of them were under shell fire at some point. A couple were completely destroyed. But it's an incredible story. It's written by Diane Atkinson. Um, the research is mostly taken from their diaries and a couple of letters. I think I thought that there were bits missing. I don't know. There was very, very detailed information about some things and then nothing. And I suppose that's the nature of research. You find the information about something that gives you minute details about a moment in time, and then the next 3 months, no one writes anything, says anything, and so you're left with this gap. But I did enjoy it very much. The other thing I am attempting to read, when I did my these are the possibilities for Historiathon Q3, I had two massive books about Europe, well, about the world post 1945. One is by Tony Judt, and I think it's called Post War. It's sitting somewhere, but I can't remember off the top of my head. And I said I would read one or the other. And then the lovely Stephanie and John David said, "Do you want to buddy read the Tony Judt book during November and December?" And I thought, yes, I do. Yes, I do. That would be lovely. Because if you've got someone to read it with, then you're more likely to read it, and it also becomes more fun. So I decided I would read this one on my own, and I am ploughing through it. Ploughing through it. I'd like to finish it before December. If I don't, I don't. But I'm about, what am I? I'm 100 pages in so far, and it's 700 plus pages. It looks bigger, but it's very text heavy. It it's not the most accessible book in the world, and it's a bit of a slog, to be honest. It's interesting, but it is a bit of a slog. So that's my reading roundup for last week. Sorry. I normally do these on a Sunday. I haven't got round to doing my update on Read Around the World. I will do that this week, she says confidently, and I've got a lot more reading to do. I'm looking forward to this week. There's lots of good things. Yeah, there's lots of good things. I'll tell you about them next week when I've read them. Anyway, I hope you're having a lovely October and reading lots. It's been a beautiful day today in the UK, so I thought I'd do the garden, so I haven't got much reading done today. But anyway, thank you very much for popping by. It's always lovely to see you. I'll put all the information about all the prompts and the events down below with the hosts and co-hosts. If you're joining in, let me know what you're reading and whether you're enjoying it. I hope you are. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now.